All participants have been muted. Although there's a chat function, you can enter questions, and time permitting, we will address these questions at the end of the discussion during the question and answer portion. Also, this webinar is being recorded. As such, it's subject to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 552, Public Information Laws. Finally, if you're not a panelist, I ask that you disable your webcam so that our listeners can focus on the panelists. Today's webinar will be moderated by Muriel Borders and will focus on information technology in Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, Muriel Borders.
Hi, everybody, and thank you again for joining us this afternoon. I'm Muriel Thomas Borders. I'm with the TWC Office of Employer Initiatives for Skills Programming for the Far West Texas region. I would like to first, again, welcome everyone and our panelists, and then also would like to welcome Chairman and Commissioner representing the public, Brian Daniel, and he'll be providing some opening remarks for us. So Chair Daniel, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, Muriel, thank you so much, and thank you for everybody who's joined us on the call. I know that there's a lot of demands for everyone's time, and I sincerely appreciate you taking time out to join with us today to talk about something that I think is really pretty critically important. I thought it was important in January, and I think it's particularly important now that we find ourselves in the middle of June and a global pandemic that's really causing some, I think, fundamental changes in the base for our workforce. And it's really causing those of us who have all been placed in leadership positions, which would include everyone on this call, to look for some solutions to help folks do two things. One, I think we have to really be able to sustain people during this time that they may be unemployed, underemployed, or perhaps, working in employment that's not exactly their dream job. And so we have some responsibilities, I think, as both the state's workforce agency and, if you're in economic development or you're at a community college or you're involved in education or the economy in any way, I think there's contributions you can make to both this short-term goal of helping folks find employment and then this longer-term goal, which I'm sort of terming getting us back on track. I'd love to get us back to where we were at the 1st of February. That's not going to happen quickly, but I believe it can happen. In doing that, I really don't want to miss an opportunity to find more and more upskilling opportunities for Texans. No matter what you're doing for a living, you probably find yourself wondering if there's other things that you could do, either in your field or it might be time to jump to another field. And I think that the number of upskilling kinds of opportunities that we can provide people are in the best interest of the whole state. For several years, I did development with the governor's office, and the conversation there was always about site selection, or incentives, or sort of how the business environment would operate in Texas. Say the last 12 to 18 months I was there, though, I noticed that the conversation had changed, and they wanted to know about, well, what kind of workforce does Texas have? Can you sustain this workforce? Can you continue to provide the kind of highly motivated workers that all companies need to succeed? And of course, we always said yes, and I want to make sure that that's always true. This is an opportunity for us to do this. So these forums, this is the first of 6, I think. These forums are really going to give us an opportunity to dig into different industries and understand what kinds of upskilling opportunities we can provide for people. Now, today, I think we're looking at information technology, but we're going to look at sciences, we're going to look at manufacturing, we're going to look at hospitality, we're going to look at all the things that drive the Texas economy. We've got an all-star panel assembled. This is expertise that people would pay to go to a seminar to see. And we've been able to assemble it here on this Zoom call so that we can take advantage of some real expertise. But I was looking over the list of folks who are on the call. Just because you're on the panel, not on the panel, doesn't mean you're not an expert. And so I hope there's a pretty robust question and answer session, because I think there's a lot of people here who've been working in this issue, studying this issue, and know how this can really help Texas. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks so much for giving me just a brief opportunity to talk about why I think this is so important. And again, let me just finish by saying thank you so much to everybody who's participating. I think it's going to be an incredible call today.
Thank you, Chairman Daniel. We appreciate you taking the time today to give us some opening remarks. Thank you again. Okay, so as Chair Daniel mentioned, we do have a very well-rounded and a panel of IT expert with a range of background to include software development providers, providers of service as software as a service, and training and certification providers. We'll also hear from an employer who is in the IT industry, which is RealPage. And they've actually utilized SDF to upskill their team members and gain a little perspective regarding their skills and their organization and what they look for when they're looking at potential new hires, as well as those upward movements within their organization. Now, our objective today in providing these forums is to give our partners some concrete ideas regarding upskilling workers in the businesses in their community as a means to get people back to work and then on career paths for in-demand jobs and meeting the business needs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give each of the panelists an opportunity to to introduce themselves and then to talk about their businesses. So in no particular order, if you would like to start off, Ian, just because I see you first on my screen. And again, thank you and welcome.
Thanks, appreciate the opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the chance to visit with you all, and excited to share a little bit about RealPage and how we've leveraged this skills grant and what we've done. So I'm Ian Marshall. I'm part of our learning and development team within RealPage. So RealPage is a industry-leading real estate software analytics organization. So we have globally, call it 7,000 employees. We have offices within the Philippines, India, the UK, across the US. We're based in Richardson, so just north of downtown Dallas. We have about 1,500 employees here and have quite a bit of engineering and IT within our organization, which is really where we were able to utilize the skills grant and the funding. We partnered with Richland locally, and phenomenal partners, and we were able to utilize that back in 2017. It took us about a year through that, and have still wanting to redo that grant going forward in 2020. So look forward to sharing some of our insight.
Great, thank you. And Mark, would you like to go next?
Thanks, Mira. Yeah, pleasure to be here as well. So thanks very much for the opportunity to talk today. And a shout out to everyone on the call as well. The innovation that we've seen throughout Texas with the Texas Workforce Commission and the boards and EDCs and others that we work with in Texas. You know, it's great to see that. So I'm Senior Director of Global Custom Training Operations with CompTIA. CompTIA is the largest global not-for-profit tech association. So our remit really is to provide varying on-ramps for individuals to gain the skills they need to pursue a tech career and to be successful. So we do that via various offerings, all customized. At the moment, a lot of virtual solutions that we're putting out there, very scalable, virtual, online instructor-led training, mentored learning approaches, self-study options with interactive, fully comprehensive learning tools. And then a lot of in-person training that we conducted on site prior to COVID-19. So it's a really interesting landscape. We do this direct, and we also partner with thousands of organizations across the US and globally, many community colleges and boards directly. So Texas is a huge market for us, still number 2 in tech jobs across the nation. According to CyberSeek, there's 500,000 open cyber jobs throughout Texas, and we see about 43,000 open in Texas as it is right now. So we're very willing and want to be very visible in the sense of building that future pipeline and the current pipeline of tech and cyber talent to fill the roles that are needed within Texas.
That was great. Thank you so much. And JJ, is your next on my screen?
I'm JJ Childress. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Microsoft's TechSpark initiative here in Texas. I'm based here in El Paso. And so TechSpark is primarily an economic development and workforce development program where we kind of bring a lot of the grants and opportunities that Microsoft had to offer to specific communities. So primarily that's El Paso, but do have some statewide initiatives around rural broadband initiatives. And you know, really what we find, and it's true, is digital transformation is what's going to define competitive economies in the 21st century. And what's really needed to maintain and sustain that digital transformation is talent. So we have a commitment to skilling, bringing many, number of our resources from LinkedIn Learning to GitHub and a number of other our properties, our own credential certifications into communities being more accessible. So my primary role is to, act with, Microsoft to find, great partners like the Texas Workforce Commission to stand up these skilling programs and initiatives.
Thank you, JJ. And then last but not least, Don Tracy. Oh, I think you need to unmute.
We'll do that. Thank you for having us on the call today, Chair Daniel and the team from TWC. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone a little bit about what we've been doing at Austin Community College in the continuing education area. I serve as our Director of Corporate and Community Education at the college. And in our area, we do a lot of industry certification programs related to the IT space. We have about 24 different programs. Actually, we have some of the CompTIA and Microsoft programs that we offer to our students through our open enrollment area. And then in our community education area, we do digital literacy training, which is an important part of preparing people to enter the workforce, particularly as the world of work is evolving and the integration of technology is happening at a more rapid pace. And then in our corporate training area, that's where we do a lot of work with organizations out in the community, private businesses and local governments and county governments and even some state agencies, where we're doing some upskilling and reskilling training for those organizations. That's also the area within our corporate training areas where we manage our skills development fund grants that we receive through the Workforce Commission, and our Skills for Small Business grant that we have through the Workforce Commission. And I would just highlight, over the last several years, we've been able to leverage the Skills Development Fund to train over 9,000 employees of companies here in Central Texas. So it's a fairly large effort. And as a matter of fact, and as a little update for the team, the TWC team, we start our first skills class with a new Skills Development Fund partner this afternoon at 4 o'clock. We have a very large scale IT project that we're starting today with an organization here in Central Texas. And we're going to be training approximately 700 of their employees in some of the latest in public cloud and private cloud technologies. And actually those classes start this afternoon. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you again, everybody, for the panelists for being here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask a series of questions and allow everybody, each of the panelists, to provide their answers. So I'd like to start off by asking all of you to think about pre, during, and post COVID-19. What have you, as training providers, businesses, employers, what have you seen as the greatest challenges in your specific industry at the moment?
So yeah, so I'm happy to jump in there. So I was, I like the way you frame it, kind of the pre, during, and post. So I would say some of our challenges were just the ability to find talent. We were always and continue to look for strong talent, as well as then we're fortunate. Our engineering IT group has a real appetite for learning, and so it's also about how do we provide it in a way that made sense, both from an onboarding standpoint, as well as just as an ongoing development of our team. And to their credit, they have a tremendous amount of appetite. I would tell you the during COVID, and I had a chance to kind of think through this. I think most, like anybody else, the chaos that came of the March, April, and into May we were a 90% work from the office organization, and we became a 98% work from home organization within about 6 weeks. So I think one of the challenges was just the simple ability to collaborate, especially within our IT and engineering space, is that projects kept going, deadlines, but we had to have a unique way to collaborate. And I'll be honest, I think we're still working through that. To say that we're there would be an overstatement. And then kind of as we start to come out from this, our new normal is going to look, in my opinion, much like this, which is a work from home, no more than probably 25%, especially in some of our international locations. So continuing the focus on how do we provide training and development in a timely fashion and in a unique way to our employees, because they're not going to be in the building. So those are some of the things that we're working through as we speak.
Thank you.
So just want to echo that point that Ian was making from a Microsoft standpoint. We saw 2 years of digital transformation in our customers in 2 months. So there's this, massive, overwhelming. And I used to be in enterprise sales, and there's a saying that you don't sell vitamins, to businesses, you sell painkillers, right? And a big driver of that was the pain that people were having, finding ways to collaborate, continue to meet work, deadlines and adjusting. A big part of that, too, is particularly with small business and nonprofits that we work with is they don't have the same type of resources that an enterprise may have in terms of, dedicated license, the talent support. And the big thing was helping upskill and retrain, the business leaders so they could push it down to, their staff. And of course, it was just a great mobilization effort to really help and do that. The response is somewhat done, but sustaining, there's still a long way to get with some of our partners.
And I would.
Yeah.
I would agree. Sorry, Don. I would agree as well with all of that. I think pre-COVID, it really was a skilled pipeline, and introducing more tech talent out into industry. So both at the top of the pipeline, in the sense of appealing to youth and career changers as unemployed, that tech can be a very fruitful and rewarding career, and a high-paying career at that. And the demand is really there. I think in Q1 we saw over 1 million IT occupation jobs added. So that there is still this disconnect in the sense of the open jobs out there, whether it's cyber or whether it's in, IT support. And now we see that shift into remote IT support as well, and new jobs being added in that space. So I think the whole landscape is changing, but it really revolves around what we're hearing in the sense of, new talent and upskilling individuals in some of those jobs to take some of the cyber roles, and having scalable programs out there to cater to all needs. Whether it's semester-long programs, whether it's accelerated style programs, whether it's a blend of the two. So I think we've seen a big gap there, and I think that's going to increase. And then in terms of being in COVID right now, we've seen some challenges with accessibility, connectivity, access to equipment in some rural areas. So ensuring that everybody has access to equipment and the ability to learn these skills to take advantage of the new landscape.
From a community college perspective, I agree with everything that you guys are saying. Our twofold challenge has been making this massive transition from face-to-face classes to online classes. Many of our students participate in training with us, particularly our non-traditional students in our continuing education area. They participate with us in face-to-face training programs, and in a matter of days, we had to go from that to somehow connecting and collaborating with our students remotely. And so we had challenges with providing technology and training to our internal staff, our instructor corps, to deliver the courses. And then we had to help our students with not just technology, but the skills to use the technology to be able to participate in classes. And so both of those were real challenges, but we see coming out of this that we'll end up with more hybrid programs than we had in the past. And in some cases, even for our more non-traditional student populations, we're finding that some of the online options are actually better than face-to-face. And so just making this sort of massive shift, we had several hundred classes that within a few days had to be changed over. And just making that massive shift within a couple of days was a real challenge. But I think we've gotten over the hump now. And going forward, we're looking at continuing with online classes in some cases instead of coming back to face-to-face.
Yeah, as well to touch on that, Don, I think there's a lot of research out there that shows that an online class, if it's delivered with that same robustness and the same principles as in person, it can actually be more effective because of all the interactive tools and labs and simulated environment, and actually having individuals perform the task, testing their skill set. It can actually be more successful, and you've got the flexibility of doing half days, because full days virtually is pretty tough, but having that flexible approach, I think, is we're seeing can be very, very effective.
So that's the right word, interactive. Mm-hmm. So conducting the online courses and training synchronously, so real time, with interactive labs and other exercises is exactly the right approach. We're actually going to be using that approach in our first class with the Skills Development Fund project this afternoon. We're going to be using breakout sessions. We've all learned about breakout sessions in Zoom and WebEx and everything else, and so we're going to be doing it this afternoon. And it's a great way to engage with the learners and to help them work through the material.
Great. So I've heard a couple of challenges kind of brought out here. One was rural connectivity, connecting the in-home learner with these platforms in order to be able to be engaged in learning and work also. I mean, one of the most critical ones is work. So as a follow-up question, thinking about those critical changes and any other, what do you think we, as not only economic development professionals, but training providers, workforce development boards, what do you think we need to do to address the challenges in order to help the workforce to enter the future effectively? And how can we make a substantial difference in addressing these areas?
I think it's, sorry, JJ, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, before COVID, there was already a pretty big digital divide from, households. So, particularly like border communities, almost 20% lower device ownership and broadband connectivity, right? So these communities somewhat already at risk, not having access to these basics tools to upskill, require not just technology education, but technology in education. That delivery method is a challenge. So something that needs to be addressed. I know that, as a state, there in some of the programs through the CARES Act, through USDA, there's, funding, available to expand these broadband programs. But it's one thing to bring connectivity. You also have to bring the skills to wrap around that connectivity. So if you don't know how to use the tools themselves, they're, it could just be a glorified paperweight, right? And so it's a big challenge. One thing that we found here, locally was many of the school districts, they have a one-to-one, device to student, policy. However, students, in some cases have to, pay $25 a year just to participate in that program. Some of the at-risk families, that was, too big, to close. So in addition to, programs that are already, existing, finding the and demonstrating to community partners, can we step up and help fund these, recycling old corporate, devices that they circle and getting into this hands. It takes a portfolio of solutions to really help close that gap. So I think something to emphasize and reach out to partners with.
Yeah, I think a big thing is accessibility and setting that expectation. So one is having programs that appeal to different demographics, different audiences. And then secondly is, effective screening in, what is going to be required within that program to be successful. And, going all the way from IT core skills, which is, really building that base of core basic technical IT knowledge with presentation skills and math and English, all the way through to cybersecurity. So we're touching every facet there. So I think we need more diverse programs as a result of this for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. Just from our perspective, I mean, both guys had quite a bit of great insight. I would say from our perspective, the accessibility, I think it's also how do we target from a learning development standpoint, items that are more the relevancy to where they are in role, and doing it. I think, Don, you may have mentioned just you've got to use multiple ways of addressing of the training. So breakout rooms and the interactive. And I really do see this as such a great opportunity and change. It's also a huge challenge because then we as a training profession have to get real creative on how we offer these and do it in bite-sized chunks. So we've gone from longer courses that we may have offered to much more smaller with self-work and just self-paced, if you will, trying to tap into that. So how do we allow people to continue to learn, but do it in a way that's unique and still gives them the ability to want to learn the material? I think the other piece that we're really focused on as we go through 2020 and really what we're hearing in 2021 is efficiency. How can we become even more efficient in our jobs? Because while we're still hiring, with people at home, with us having just kind of this different outlook, I think there's going to be more and more focus on just the overall efficiency of our teams to make sure that they are, not necessarily measuring every minute, but if someone understands the importance of the efficiency behind the work, it's a critical component for what we're going to be looking for.
Great, thank you. So let me ask you, Ian, so you kind of touched on, efficiencies and showing people how to use those tools that they have. From an employer's perspective and as a tech company, what skills gaps are you seeing and how are you as a tech company addressing these challenges?
Yeah, I think, some of what we've seen, and just to be completely transparent, I did poll one of the engineering leaders that I work very closely with, and, some of her feedback was the fact that we are a company that's grown through acquisition. And so the challenge, so it's a great opportunity because you get all these new organizations that you're able to acquire. The technology that comes with that is then the gap. And so then how do we quickly train our engineering IT group on these new organizations that are coming in, being able to assess that, as well as, frankly, we have different parts of the organizations that are working on a product or a certain technology, and the employees want to learn and do something different. Again, full transparency, we're still working through how do we build a way for individuals to leap into another work stream, learn that skill set to be able to apply it. That's where, from my perspective, that ability to provide that just-in-time training, they understand what they need or what competency is missing. And we're still working through some of those items on how to address the competency piece, is the ability to just to quickly assess and then provide something both from a work perspective so that they're actually doing the work to learn it, but then to supplement that with some sort of training, be it online or third party that we can provide to the different parts of the organization.
Great, thank you. So I would also like to ask, JJ, you talked a little bit about, border communities, underserved communities. I know that Microsoft, you're the manager of the Spark Tech communities. Can you give us a little insight about this initiative and what prompted Microsoft to take this on?
Yeah, so the TechSpark initiative came out of the Office of the President. So Brad Smith, president of Microsoft, was looking at our investments, and we had saw that Middle America had somewhat been underrepresented, right? And there's very unique challenges. So originally 6 communities were selected. El Paso was the last of that 6, there's unique challenges, and we thought, how could we kind of bring some of these resources that we have as a company to these communities and help address some of the gaps. So that's where my role has come in, and we've recognized. So particularly with El Paso is 80% of employees in El Paso come from firms 20 employees or fewer. So it's a big challenge. A lot of mom and pop and businesses that have been around. and they're not necessarily, not even getting to the point of creating technology, but just using technology to do business is a challenge for some of the smaller firms. And so some ways that we've looked to really address that gap and just which actually with Workforce Solutions Borderplex here, creating a program to create digital transformation specialists that will be embedded at the chambers to really help train business owners on how to use these tools, right? If business owners aren't leveraging and creating value, through IT, they're not going to continue to make that investment in tech jobs or just in technology, more general. And completely understand you have very limited resources, and so you have to be very careful with prioritization, but how to really bring all these systems in. And I guess like Ian was talking about is typically what you see, or a big challenge with these companies is they have maybe several SaaS solutions out there, but those solutions don't necessarily connect and interact with each other. So you may have too much plumbing in terms of your information streams, and you just don't. I have all these dashboards and how to make sense of it. So I think business owners do a great job of articulating their problems, maybe what they would like to see done to help solve them, but they have shortcomings, with the design and implementation of those, IT plans. So we're hoping, providing the skill sets, training the trainers, so to speak, enabling the businesses that then just have a better appetite and understand, okay, how to make sense of all the information that becomes available just by becoming tech enabled.
Well said. Absolutely, you're spot on.
Great. And Mark, would you like to talk a little bit about how CompTIA has worked in communities across Texas? I know one example is that you did work in a border area training veterans and their spouses for cybersecurity. So would you like to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've done projects down in Mission, Texas, Laredo, San Antonio, but I think what you're referencing is the project out in El Paso, where we work with Workforce Solutions Borderplex to upskill and train veterans and their spouses, as well as career changers and WIOA eligible individuals. And with all the programs, we add in soft skills. So I was going to mention this earlier. It's really important to get a nice blend of technical skills with soft skills, because employers are really looking for that combination. And I think, we're in interesting times now with individuals that have been furloughed or unemployed. A lot have very, very strong customer service skills that could be transferable into a tech career. And we've seen that across a lot of projects. But with this particular project, we were able to utilize a TIP grant to train a 12-week program, pretty intensive. And again, that's why the screening is so important to ensure these individuals are committed and they understand what is involved, and they're ready to go the distance. Because we were certifying to over 15 different tech and cyber job roles across 5 different certifications. So it's pretty intense. 2/3 of the individuals that graduated gained salaries from $57,000 up to $110,000. And that's really what it's all about, is seeing the impact that it has on individuals and the opportunity that it opens up to them for potential employers, and seeing them flourish. And, if individuals are going through and gaining, a cybersecurity certification, maybe a cybersecurity analyst, doesn't mean they're going to enter the job field within that space. But it means they've got that rounded skill set to be able to grow, whether they're entering a help desk, IT support, or network admin. There's various roles out there with a rounded skill set. They can just grow within their career that much quicker. So that was a great project and a very successful. And that was training 95 individuals across the program.
Okay. Good. All right, and Don, I know Austin Community College has recently started a Tech Digital Next program. Would you like to talk a little bit about this program and why Austin Community College decided to implement this?
Sure, absolutely, thank you. And it follows along with what JJ and Mark were just talking about. with the Digital Next program, what we wanted to be able to do is help prepare particularly our small and medium-sized businesses, the lifeblood of our communities, to be able to make the transition from their current business model, which is, think of a small restaurant or a small retail outlet in a community. There's a lot of reliance on word of mouth and walk-in traffic for their business. Well, that's all changed. And it's unlikely that it's going to revert back to the way it was several months ago. And you see restaurants who are now taking online orders, and then that food is being delivered by Grubhub or Lyft or someone else out to their customers. And so what we wanted to be able to do is help small businesses to gain the technical skill, and their employees gain the soft skills to be able to work in a more virtual environment. And so we designed the Digital Next program with 4 different core areas. One around customer service and relationship management, social media marketing, how to build a digital presence for yourself. 2, we wanted to be able to teach individuals in these businesses about the mobile technology, so using tablets and mobile phones in their business, how to manage security in a mobile environment. And then we wanted to be able to teach them how to work together, leadership skills and employee engagement and building partnerships that are more virtual now, at a distance now rather than face-to-face. And then we wanted to also integrate some training around collaboration tools. Microsoft 365 is a great example. How do you use Teams and the collaboration tools that opportunities that are available to you through Microsoft 365 or other collaboration tools that are out there. So the Digital Next program is about helping particularly our small and medium-sized businesses make this transition from the analog to the digital world.
All right, thank you. So I just want to remind everybody, we're going to give you opportunity to ask questions, but if you would enter them into the chat box, and then we'll give we'll allow the panelists to answer your questions. In the interim, I'm going to ask a few more questions, particularly to Ian. So Ian, I'd like to ask you, I know we've talked about different training and kind of some skills gaps that you've seen. Is there, with respect to training to prepare folks for careers in IT, is there something that you wish everybody was doing, and why?
That's a good question. I think to get those interested in this industry, I think the best, I guess, most practical way is just how do we expose the folks that are going to be studying or want to study what is entailed. So different clubs that may be of interest, and stressing and giving some early exposure. So coding, for example, or robotics or things of that nature. How do we encourage individuals to learn a little bit more about it, or offering free online access to some of the different skills, very, very basic level, just, if you will, to whet the appetite to see if this is something that would be of interest, and then to be able to have some sort of next step to say, okay, if you're interested in this, then this may be the area of interest, and to be able to provide some of the different, backgrounds of the different roles, as well as what it is and what it isn't. If you go this route, here's some of the different items that you'll be working on, and trying to be as transparent on the front end for employee or future employees to know what it is, and then to be able then to offer. And so one of the things we've been very blessed to be able to do is have internship programs where we bring folks in. It's nothing new under the sun, but for us, it was fairly new. And it was a great chance for us to sit back and see, how do we leverage some of these interns to help, not with just projects. We're giving them real projects, and they're working remote this summer all over the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And they're helping us see, where do we have areas of opportunity within our space. So, I mean, to go back to your question, I think the earlier the better, from just the exposure to what is this industry about, and what it's not about, so that they have a better understanding and a comfort as they start going into school to understand a little bit more about it.
Just from a college perspective, I think that there, in addition to getting more folks interested in moving into the field, information technology, computer technology is so intertwined in all of our workplaces, and increasingly so. And we've seen how quickly that emerged for some of us in the last few months. I think it's also important to look at how we can come alongside of existing employees of small, medium, and large businesses and upskill them to use the new technologies in their current work, or reskill them to move into new opportunities within their organization, or even outside of the organization. So I think that's a critical piece too, is not just preparing individuals to enter the workforce and enter specific IT professions, but to find ways to engage with existing workforces to upskill and reskill. I think that's an important piece.
I would just add as well, a lot of what we're talking about is on the responsibility, I think, as well, of the training provider to really mirror the workplace as much as possible within the training. And whether that's through performing just tasks, help desk tickets, an internship program, pre-apprenticeship apprenticeships, it's really incorporating that aspect, not just to pass an exam. That is one type of learning, but it's really building that broadened skill set that an individual needs to be able to have a career, to be able to fall back on, and also to understand what is involved. So we're not setting somebody up to fail. We're giving them, as you mentioned, that real expectation and real exposure early on. I think that's really important.
Definitely. Well, these were all very, very good points. So I'd like to, we're getting close to being almost at an hour. So I would love to hear if there's anything that maybe I've left out that you all would like to address, and allow each of you to kind of give your closing comments regarding IT, whether it be from a training provider perspective, or even Ian from a employer perspective. So I'll give each one of you an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Again, I just can't thank you enough for including me on the panel and share our insight, and the other guys have added such great insight as well. I'd say, just kind of closing thoughts from my perspective is, we're faced with how do we continue to serve our customer and provide a value as an organization and think differently. And that means train differently. That means lead differently, because to a certain extent, this is the new normal for us. And so from a learning development standpoint, our challenge is how do we do it in a way that touches and allows individuals to learn differently, still just in time with their peers, to make it interactive. I think Mark had a great point. As much realistic as it can be to what they're going to do, the better. That's one of the feedback items that some of the engineer leaders have said to us, is where we can simulate and give them the opportunity to do these skills, the better. And again, I can't say enough. The SDF has been an absolute tremendous resource to us as an organization. Back in 2017 all the way to today, it's still talked about within our organization. So we very much are big fans of it and want to continue to benefit from it going forward.
That's great to hear. Great.
I would just add, thanks again for allowing us to be a part of this. Please see CompTIA as a resource to tap into in any way that's valuable, whether it's our research, whether it's insight to best practices, the training programs. We're here to help and support Texas in building that pipeline for sure. A couple of tools that should be of interest as you're looking to see, well, where should we build programs? CyberSeek, I referenced earlier. Cyberseek.org is a live heat map of open cybersecurity job roles that are out there. And it also shows the number of individuals employed within the cybersecurity sector. So that's a great resource that you can tap into, obviously the state and then larger metropolitan areas as well, to see where are the jobs. And then Cyber States is a report that we do to show the landscape as well in terms of the tech sector and what is out there. So I think there are a couple of tools that should be interesting. I would just advise, when you're looking at building programs, look at where are the jobs and what is the outcome, because it's often placing these individuals in high-paying careers. I think an IT can be a very rewarding part of that, and we need to collectively continue to remove the barriers, the perceived myths of a career in tech. You don't need to be a maths and a science genius. There are programs out there to allow you to be successful, and we just need to continue to push that.
Great.
Again, thank you, Commissioner Daniel, Seth, Muriel, for putting this together, and of course, all the other Marky and Don. Great points and super informative. Here. One thing that, although this is emphasizing the IT sector, IT is cross-functional, cuts across all businesses, and it's just the way business is being done. And one thing to kind of consider is although IT jobs may not show up in a SOC screen, IT underpins work. You're seeing financial analysts being required to have some sense of Python. Really even from restaurants, having these APIs of how do you connect Grubhub to your Aloha system, that you're, so it really underpins everything, and something to be, keep in mind. And as we look, just, projections down the future, AI and automation are, coming, right? And it is a force of creative destruction that, looking at Texas, almost 43% of roles will be affected, by AI. And that's going to require us as a state to remain competitive, to adopt an attitude that we need to learn, unlearn, and relearn continuously. So, the micro-credentialing, available through, training providers, continuing education, like, through CompTIA, really, really important, to kind of change these, to bring into the cultures of our companies and just the organization and leadership as a state. And we're doing a great job of it. And it's just going to be, emphasized even more so in a hybrid world. A hybrid world is still 100% digital. So we'll need to keep supporting those initiatives.
Yeah, JJ, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the innovation is driving an absolute revolution in the world of work, and we see many current occupations being de-skilled by technological advancement or business process improvements or creative destruction in the marketplace, and it's creating not just big skill gaps, but a lot of little small skill gaps that need to be bridged. And this is where these smaller micro programs that we offer through continuing education can help bridge those gaps. It might be an 8-hour class in using a certain collaboration software, or it might be a bigger program that results in an industry certification or even a degree. And so we need to be looking for ways to string these learning experiences together in ways that help new entrants into the workforce and the existing workforce to continually train and retrain, upskill and reskill. It's a constant cycle that we have going on. I'd like to thank you guys for having us on the call, and I want to encourage those around the state who are listening in. Austin Community College can be a resource for you as well. Reach out to us if you have some questions on how we're managing Skills Development Fund programs. Reach out to us on some of the programs that we have that we may be able to share with you. We're looking at ways now of sharing some of the online training that we've developed with other colleges around the state. We're actually working with some of the folks in El Paso to hopefully deliver the Digital Next program to some of the local businesses there in El Paso. So we're working with El Paso Community College and Borderplex and those guys to try to bring some of that training there. So we're a resource not just here in Central Texas, but if there are other folks on the call that are interested in what we're doing and we can provide some advice and counsel on how to do that, reach out to us.
Great, thank you, everybody. That's really, JJ, I really liked what you said, that we need to learn, unlearn, and relearn. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
100%.
And thank you again to all of our panelists. On behalf of TWC, we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy days to speak on the subject of information technology. So now I'm going to introduce our Interim Director of the Office of Employer Initiatives, Dale Robertson, and he's going to give his closing remarks. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, Muriel, and thank you to all of our panelists today, Ian, Mark, JJ, and Don, acting for Hector Aguilar today. But great information. I don't think we could have asked for a better group of panelists to your wide range of experiences that you've shared with us. So thank you all for being here. I also want to thank Chairman Daniel for taking time to launch this series. We thought about doing a series where we'd focus on industry, and we wanted to start with information technology primarily for this reason, for what you guys have expressed today, that information technology cuts across all technologies, all sectors. We have, regardless if you're at a small mom and pop operation or the large organization like RealPage, you can take advantage of this program, and then being flexible with the training offerings. That's the objective of today's presentation, was to be able to talk about how training could be done, hear from a business and what they see and what their needs are. And having this variety is really good for us and for our audience. So I want to also thank our the audience for joining us today, participating. And of course, I can't go without thanking Julia Mercado, who you're not seeing here behind the scenes, and her team here in the communications area, or the conference planning and media department, and her team within external relations. I also want to thank all our Executive Director Ed Cerner for giving us the opportunity to also do these kinds of things. And finally, I'd like to invite you all, the audience, to come back. We're going to do, as Chair Daniel pointed out, 6 of these. The next one is going to be on June 30th, and we're going to focus on healthcare and bioscience on that particular. So great job, Merrill and Seth, and in the background, I think Thomas and Dee, Dolores Stacy, and Thomas Walker as well. So again, thank you all very much for being here today, and great information. I don't know, I see Chairman Daniel there. I don't know if you want to say anything else before we leave.
No, you've said it all. What a great panel. Thanks, panelists, for all your time and certainly your expertise. We all gained from this, and I really sincerely appreciate everybody's participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to you, Meryl, if anything else.
I don't have anything. Just again, thank you, panelists, Ian, Mark, JJ, Don, and Chair Daniel. Thank you so much for taking the time. To the audience, thank you. And as Dale said, I hope that you join us for our next forum when we have another great panel of speakers to share their perspective. So thank you, everybody. And with that, we'll close the meeting.
Thank you.